Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're getting our final review of Obsidian from Paradise Lost. After one entire week of listening to this album as much as we possibly can, TV Fish, what do you think?
This album was really good. Saying that right now. And there are multiple reasons for why this album is good. And honestly, a lot of those reasons, I don't even have to talk about specific songs. Now, of course I will, that's what we do, but I think what makes this album as good as it is because of it has a lot of fundamental strengths. One of which being the depth. There's a lot happening on this album, and especially for the genre that it is, it's really impressive. Now, these guys are kind of one of the forefathers of the doom gothic genre, but it is really impressive that after, so much time of them being around, they still have music that you can keep listening back to and noticing things. And one song that already stood out to me, and I did talk about the song last week, was Hope Dies Young. In the chorus, there's this melody that happens, and I really want to say it's a vocal. I'm not 100% sure, it could be some keyboard effect, but I feel like it might be some vocal, and it sounds really cool. It's like right before he says whatever the line, hopes will die young. And it's really cool sounding, and one day, like Monday, Tuesday, or whatever, like early on in the week, it just clicked in my head, and I'm like, wow, what was that? That was super interesting. And stuff like that is totally riddled throughout this album, like small little bits that start to jump out at you. Another thing I really like about this album is how catchy it is. Now, when you talk about catchy, I feel like there's a good catchy and a bad catchy.
Of course, there's the Taylor Swift effect, and then there's songs that are actually good.
Yeah, like the more or less. The bad catchy is when it's in your head, but it's more annoying than anything else.
Taylor Swift.
Sure. But the good catchy is when it's in your head and you just want more. Like, it's like you're just sitting there eating some really good fries, and it's like, yeah, this is good. I just want more. I'll just have more. It's something easy. It's like a, whatever, box of fries, bag of potato chips, any fun snack that you want to eat. This album.
You want to know what I think? I think a testament to that point that you made, which is true, this album is catchy, is that there's definitely a lot of 80s industrial rock influence in here. Like you hear some Depeche Mode in there, Duran Duran, things like that, The Cure maybe, there's all these influences from back then that are kind of woven into this album, and those are bands that were known for having catchy songs, right? It is more kind of pop orientated on their aspect. This is probably, I'm not gonna say it's pop metal, but as far as metal goes, it's probably closer to pop than most bands are, as accessible as this is. But definitely has a catchiness to it, which is not something you can say about a lot of metal. A lot of metal is repulsive to the general public, but I feel like you could put this on to some normies and they won't hate it. That's what I feel like. They won't hate it. It's something that they can kind of go, oh wow, this has a pretty average sounding beat. It sounds average to an average person. It's not overly aggressive. It's not overly distorted, which is cool. I think that's cool, and it's a nice kind of change of flavor. And we mentioned this in the first impressions, that metal music doesn't always have to be super fast and aggressive and stuff like that. You can tone it down, you can strip the bones and still have something that has weight to it and still hits hard without punching you in the face every time you listen to it.
100%. And another thing that you mentioned that I agree with is the accessibility of this album. And I think, like, another part of why I personally really like this album is because of its accessibility. Now, I've mentioned before in the first impressions that I struggle with really getting into the doom genre, but I feel like this album was a really good gateway for me to really start appreciating it, because it's not super duper deep rooted in the genre that it's like niche. So I feel like a lot of it is, a bit of an acquired taste, but this album, and by extension this band, is really good at making it easy for anyone to kind of get into, but still has that kind of musical depth and a lot of interesting stuff. Like, the drummer's still amazing. 1 week later, he does so many interesting and different things. One of the things I really liked was on Ending Days, the verses, he's just playing on the snare drum and hitting some accents. Does not do that on any other song, anything, it's just there, which makes it unique. but also it's really cool sounding, and I like the kind of floating feeling that it has, and that's just super cool. Both those songs are probably some of my favorite on the album. And another thing that I really like about this album is how well it flows. You can put it on start to finish and it feels super complete. And, you know, we mentioned Darker Thoughts. This kind of sounds like an ending track, and I can agree with that, but at the same time, the way that it kind of just, like that the groove opens up after the intro feels very introductory in that sense. And in comparison to the final track, which is Ravengast, I feel like Ravengast is a really good closer, especially because it bookends itself. It starts with this piano thing and it ends with this piano thing, and it's really nice.
Very ominous. Yeah, going back to what you said about the drums, one of my favorite songs on the album was track number 3, Ghosts, and it was because of the drums. He's got this cool tom beat going on, a lot of really great grooves and fills in that song, really cool stuff. And that song and Hope Dies Young are two songs that reminded me, and I don't know why they reminded me of this song. They reminded me of the song Goodbye Horses by Q Lazarus, which if you don't know what that song is, it's a song that was popularized by the movie Silence of the Lambs. It's the song Buffalo Bill dances to. Whenever those two songs came on, I got Goodbye Horses vibes from them. I don't know why, but I do like that song. I think it's a fantastic song. So by extension, I think those two songs are also fantastic because they give me that same vibe. But my favorite song on the album, I gotta say, is track number 2, Fall From Grace. There's just something about that song that stood out more than the rest of the album, and I think it's because the second half the song just gets raunchy, and I just love the riff. It's really, really cool. And there's a few pinch harmonics throughout the song that are like little here and there, and I love my pinch harmonics, but there's one that he does right before the solo, and I just love it. Every time it happens, I was like, yes.
The solos are another big example of the depth of this album. There are some really tasteful solos, like
very tasteful. Yeah, very.
A lot of albums will have
stylistic.
They'll have solos, but they'll kind of feel like, okay, whatever. But these ones, you can feel so much personality in them, and that just makes them so much better.
Yeah, and they all sound different too. So it's not like the guy's a one-trick pony and he plays the same solo all the time, which a lot of guitar players sadly do. But he's got some chops, man. He does a lot of cool stuff, and he knows his way around his guitar. And I don't know, yeah. All the solos were pretty good, and his riffing's awesome. His tone, as we mentioned in the first impressions, the tones on this album are amazing. They're just something that they just make your ears cream. They just freaking, I don't know. I love it, man. I really love the tone, the guitar tone.
The riffs on this album are just so awesome. Like, pretty much for all the reasons we've already went over. Like, they're catchy, they're not repetitive, they are, tasteful. Like, they just get in your ear and they stay there and they just get comfortable within your ear, pretty much.
It's true.
So with that being said, I think it might be a good time for us to rate this album. Vile, what do you give Obsidian?
Obsidian is a really good album. And I'm looking down at my notes here, looking at the track listing. And I'm looking at the songs going, that. I'm looking at one track and I'm thinking this track is forgettable because I can't remember how it goes, and that's track number 6, Serenity.
It's a good bridge.
I can't really remember how that song goes. Throughout the week listening to this album, I enjoyed it every time. I did not get bored of it, but there wasn't a lot of things really, really jumping out at me that made me like really love it. Except for a few things that I'm looking at my notes again, going, oh yeah, that song had that song had that. I'm having a hard time rating this album. I really am. You know what? I feel like it did enough. I'm gonna give it a toe tag. I feel like it did enough. I really can't say anything bad about it. That's why. Maybe I don't love it personally with a lot of passion, but I did enjoy it a lot, and I really can't take anything away from it. It didn't do anything wrong. One song that's kind of forgettable, but that's just me. You know what I mean? And one song out of 9 is not bad. So I think it's a deserving score. It's barely a toe tag for me, but it's a toe tag nonetheless.
Well, interestingly enough, I kind of felt similar throughout the week because I really like this album. I think this album's really, really cool for all the reasons explained. It wasn't really blowing my mind per se, but one big thing that I took into account is that this, I feel like, is a perfect bridge for people that aren't into doom metal to walk over and get into doom metal. And I think like that is super huge for this album. It gets my toe tag as well, because I think, you know, similar to you, I can't really say anything bad about it. Personally, it's not, you know, one of my top albums overall, but I think this album does enough objectively to really stand out, and I think it's perfect for anyone who wants to get into this genre.
There you go. We both feel pretty much the same way. It gets 2 toe tags getting added to the list. But as usual, we want to know what you guys think. You guys have been listening to this album all week as well. Comment down below and give us your thoughts. Do you agree with our scores or not? Boom, down below. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. But that's it from us. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
See you guys in the next video. Later.